Thank you so much, Gina. It's a great pleasure to be here with all of you. I hope you can hear me, but yeah, let me know if you don't. Yeah, it's a huge honor to be here. And I think it was almost a year ago, or kind of exactly a year ago, that we did a similar retreat together. And I'm just so happy that now we also have online participants joining as well, which just makes our community all the more um, large, well, technically, but also allows us to share the four immeasurables with each other. So, just to say a couple of words about the format today, it is exactly as Gina mentioned, it is meant to be a very relaxed and tender day for us all. We will actually start with a session in which we will focus on the themes of calm and tenderness, of calmness and tenderness cultivated through meditation. And even though in the ensuing sessions we will start focusing on the four immeasurables themselves, it is my greatest hope that we will all be able to collectively maintain that air of tenderness towards ourselves and each other. Therefore, yes, strengthening community ties, but also making sure that at this very delicate period in time, both historically and in terms of the cycles of each year. And we were just starting our Western calendar year, the solar year, and we're slowly moving towards the new year according to the lunar calendar. So, in this kind of, at this gentle and delicate point, it is my hope that we'll be able to maintain a certain degree of tenderness for ourselves, not just for others. So we'll do some practice specifically focused on that. And I'm super excited also that the theme for this retreat is the four immeasurables. The so-called four immeasurables have been the main focus of my study, practice, and translation work for the last 12 or more years. I'm very excited to be facilitating some meditations on this together with you today. And we also actually have a couple of resource pages that we would love to share with you in the aftermath of the retreat. One is on what's known as the queer Dharma. So those are just resources for queer practitioners who might need a little bit of pick-me-up energy, kind of beam me up. And so there are some quotes related to the queer Dharma, some books, some articles, and so forth. And it's an updatable list, and that I regularly try to add things there. And we have a few things coming, co-created with the Jamyang community, actually, to add there. But another resource page will be specifically on the four immeasurables, because last year in I guess that's now 2 years ago, in 2023, we recorded a lovely course on the four immeasurables with assistance from Venerable Konchuk and others there in the room. And through that, we are now able to offer it to you. So if you want to dive deeper into the immeasurables, then that's one thing that you can check out. And there are also books and other recordings there that are referenced. So maybe some of it will be helpful. So all of this is just to say that we're not aiming to fit everything into this day. This is not a teaching day. I'm not a teacher, really. I'm just a translator, and on occasion I facilitate stuff, but certainly not a capital T teacher, not even a teacher at all. But as a facilitator, I like to imagine that I'm just the worst student in the room who has been tasked with doing a presentation and kind of sharing some things on the topic that we're tackling here. In this case, the topic of the four immeasurables. And in this case, because it's a retreat, it's super easy. We're just going to do meditations focused on this stuff. So for the meditations themselves, I think I'm back. Thank you. I think one thing to share is that I'm in Mexico City, which is where I live, and we just had a tiny electricity blip where everything went dark, and then we're back up. So, tiny obstacle on the way. Actually, in the Tibetan cultural tradition, it's often said that if there are obstacles, then the thing we're doing is probably meaningful. Although, of course, that's not always true. Sometimes it just means we're doing something stupid and we should totally give it up. In this case, though, I'm pretty sure we're doing something meaningful because we're going to be focusing on the beautiful qualities of our heart. And what I was going to say is that for these meditations, also, please feel free to do them in the most comfortable way. There's really no pressure to be the perfect practitioner who assumes the most perfect position. and maintains it for the entire duration of the session. It's really important to be tender with ourselves, especially since we're also trying to be tender with each other. So if you need extra support with regards to your body position, if you prefer a chair, if you would like some extra cushions for your knees, if you need a blanket, all totally fine. The practices of the four immeasurables can also always be done in the supine position, lying flat on our back in the so-called Shavasana posture. I understand that in terms of the space available in the Gompa and Jamyang, that might not really be an option right now for most people. But if you're practicing from home or even by means of a recording, then feel free to do all of these meditations while lying down, as long as you're not falling asleep. That's perfect. So for the first practice, we'll go into a preliminary method that allows us to prepare our body, speech, and mind for all the practices that we are going to undertake as our main training for the day. So before we start exploring the four immeasurables, it's always good to go back to basically the quality of relaxation. That's the way it's sometimes described, or to the quality of naturalness, in which we allow an element of relaxation to pervade our body, speech, and mind. Some other teachers also describe this as settling. Some describe it as a fusion of stillness, silence, and spaciousness. There are many descriptions for this type of practice, for this type of meditation, but in many traditions, including the traditions in which I have been fortunate to get some training and offer my translation services, I guess in these traditions, this preliminary relaxation is really emphasized. And we will combine it with a little bit of mindful breathing, diving deep into, once again, the breath and its ability to soothe our body, speech, and mind. So that's just something that we can play with for the next 12 or so minutes. For that, please make sure you're comfortable. If you want to stretch for a second or two, please do that. And then once we have all stretched, once we have taken a sip of water, if that feels necessary, we can all go into our preferred meditation position and just start focusing on the sensations of the body, which is where we will look for the qualities of stillness, silence, and spaciousness. And so the first thing to do is to assume the chosen meditation position. And then, once we have assumed it, for a little while we can focus on adjusting the different parts of the body to make sure we're perfectly comfortable. For many of us, it is also quite good to very gently elongate the spine, to drop and relax the shoulders if we're in the upright position. Good to also bring our awareness to the facial muscles to soften them before we start exploring the actual meditation. And then with this, we bring our awareness into the depths of the body, coming down all the way to the ground that's holding us right now, and recognizing the sensations that are associated with the earth element that is holding us. Noticing the sensations arising from our body being in contact with the ground, the firmness, the stability, the trustworthiness of that surface. And then inviting that stability into our body as a wave of relaxation that starts slowly expanding across our legs and the entire lower half of the body first. And then also extends itself to the entire body, all the way up to our crown. In order to aid this wave of relaxation in its work, we can perform an abbreviated body scan, starting with an exploration of the sensations in our feet and toes. Where we notice the sensations and release the tension to the degree that's available to us right now. Exploring the entirety of our legs, all the way up to our pelvic floor, which we also spend some time with. Then our abdomen and lower back. The space of the torso. Our shoulders. Our upper arms. Our forearms. And then our hands and fingers. Spending some time with that area to release all the remaining tension, if that's possible, but also all the restlessness, all the unnecessary types of movement, everything that prevents us from enjoying the natural stillness of the body. From there, coming back up to our shoulders, spending some time with them, and then exploring our neck and throat. Then the back of our head, our crown, and finally our facial muscles. With that, we then expand our awareness, being aware of the sensations in the entire body at the same time. And in particular, choosing to observe the sensations that accompany the natural process of breathing, arising anywhere within our body as the natural inhalation and exhalation occur. Some practitioners like to think of this as the waves of breathing, rushing back and forth through our tactile field, allowing us to focus our attention if we choose to do so, and helping us in releasing all the unnecessary tension and restlessness. And this is where this natural connection to our breath can be made even more intimate if we choose to think of the breath as our natural ally or as a positive force of nature that helps us in rebalancing both our body and our mind. The only thing that the breath needs from our side is for us to keep our awareness on the sensations, on these tactile waves, entrusting ourselves to them more and more deeply with each new cycle of breathing. And so if that feels like something we're interested in, for just a couple more minutes we can stay with the breath and allow these waves to take care of our body and mind. And we can use each natural exhalation, for example, as an invitation to entrust ourselves to the cycles of breathing even more deeply. Letting go and relaxing into it. Then we can extend our awareness to the entirety of the tactile field once again. But now with the recognition that there's this force of nature, this positive influence of the breath is always present if we allow it to affect our system. And yet right now, we will slowly be concluding the practice by introducing a tiny bit of movement to our body. Maybe by gently rocking back and forth, if that feels right. Maybe by moving our fingers or stretching our neck, reactivating our facial muscles, blinking our eyes open. And then just taking a short break before we start our next meditation. So for these tiny breaks, please feel free to stand up if you feel like standing up, stretch if you feel like stretching, no pressure. Also to recognize that indeed, some of us might feel like we need to go to the bathroom earlier than our official break, which is in about 14 minutes. So that's also totally fine. But the next practice is on the theme of tenderness. And that's not a random word. That's not just a nice, fanciful idea that we're bringing in, let's say, from the West that has no associations in the traditional Buddhist terminology. No, not at all. We're actually talking about a very specific mental state that's very widely referenced across the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, but is not always explained in terms of the specific practices that help us cultivate it. So tenderness is one of the ways of translating the wonderful and beautiful Tibetan term tsewa, which is also translated as care or caring, affection, love, sometimes just love, kindness. There are all sorts of ways of translating that. There's all sorts of ways of referring to it. Basically, in the Tibetan tradition, it's all referred by this one beautiful word, and that word tsewa kind of includes the entirety of the four immeasurables and all the other pro-social qualities that are available to us as humans, that are available to other mammals, that are available to all sentient beings. Eventually, basically, it's about some foundational level of warmth that we can offer to ourselves and to others. And it's from that warmth that the four immeasurables, loving kindness, and so on, are meant to then arise. What's interesting is that until fairly recently, there was very little stuff available on training in Tsewa itself, as opposed to its crystallized forms like loving kindness. And only in the last couple of decades, I would say, have some of the usually younger generation Tibetan teachers started offering something along the lines of, oh, well, if you're struggling with this quality, here's how to train in it, or don't forget to train in Tsewa. And why they started doing that was because they recognized that for many practitioners coming from the quote-unquote the West, which also refers to pretty much any region that's been affected by our common global culture these days, being truly tender and warm-hearted and gentle and affectionate with ourselves and with others might be a struggle. We sometimes just don't have that available to us easily for multiple cultural reasons, but also sometimes for reasons that are more that have more to do with us just not receiving that type of affection maybe earlier in our life, or maybe right now because we're simply living in a culture that's not very affectionate. And for that reason, we might lose contact with this quality. Because of that, our practices of loving kindness, compassion, and so forth also remain pretty dry, pretty brainy, pretty intellectual. There's not much feeling to them. And to work with that, we have these beautiful qualities. We have these beautiful practices for training in Tsewa, for training in tenderness. So we're going to explore one of these right now, and then we'll have some journaling prompts that you can use in the ensuing break or in your spare time if you want to contemplate that, along with some resources on the cultivation of this quality that are included in our resource lists. So let's find a comfortable stationary position. Once again, if you want to stretch a little bit, that's totally fine. But then finding a position that would support the qualities of relaxation and stillness and allow us to explore some tenderness for the next 10 minutes. Finding and assuming a comfortable stationary position, bringing our awareness back to the body, and recognizing our connection to the earth, both the planet and simply the surface that is holding us right now, supporting us in this meditation. And then, as we allow a wave of relaxation to arise, expanding across our body, extending itself to the different parts of the body, we can once again perform an abbreviated body scan. First, spending some time with our feet and toes, releasing the tension and just noticing the sensations there. Then, spending some time with our pelvic floor, our lower abdomen, our lower back, Then our shoulders, our hands and fingers, and our face. Then, for a little while, extending our awareness to the entire body and noticing the sensations that accompany the process of breathing. Once again, allowing the gentle tactile waves of breathing to remove some of our tension, some of our concerns, our restlessness, and basically everything other than the qualities of relaxation, stability, and clarity. Then, to explore the actual quality of tenderness or tsewa or heartfelt affection itself, first with regards to ourselves, we bring our awareness to this very person sitting and practicing here, the person that we refer to as ourselves. And we become aware of ourselves as if we were looking at ourselves through the eyes of a truly loving, affectionate friend. Or, if that's easier, through the eyes of a truly realized practitioner, a truly realized being that has transformed its mind into a fusion of love and wisdom. A good friend, a loving friend, or a realized being would see us simply as a being that has a body, has a mind, has personal history, fears, aspirations, hopes, dreams. And a potential for being happy and for finding greater freedom from suffering. So we have all of our vulnerability, we have all of our amazing potential, and in spite of all the stories we might be telling about ourselves to ourselves and to the world, at the end of the day, we are just as deserving of tender affection as, let's say, a newborn kitten, or a puppy, or a baby, or any other being that is deserving of warmth that is not really conditional. So, imagining and feeling that we're holding ourselves in this non-judgmental, warm-hearted awareness as if we were, indeed, a newborn puppy or a kitten held in our arms and embraced with our affectionate awareness that says, or almost says, how wonderful that you exist. I'm with you. So as we continue breathing naturally, we can use, if we wish to, each inhalation or each exhalation to strengthen this warmth that we're offering to ourselves, this non-indifference that we're pouring into our body and mind. Allowing this warmth, this tenderness, this non-indifference to well up from the depths of our being, from our basic goodness, as it's sometimes referred to. And then holding ourselves in this gentle, energetic, or mental embrace. Knowing that this tender awareness itself will actually inspire our system to evolve and grow towards greater and greater flourishing. And if we wish, we can also recognize peripherally that together with us, others are offering the same tenderness to themselves as well. And in fact, our tenderness is not limited to just one specific being. Even if we are mainly attending to ourselves right now, some of that tenderness is also freely flowing towards others. And so eventually through training or through opening up, we'd be able to feel that we are holding all of these vulnerable bubbles of being in our gentle embrace. If we wish, we can also offer that tenderness to ourselves through our sense of touch. So if one of our hands or both of our hands are touching our knees, for example, or if we want to put our hand on our chest for a little while, these small gestures can serve as a way of offering more warmth to our body and through the medium of that also to our mind. And that allows us to also wish for all beings to be touched by tenderness, so that they can truly open up and flourish. Then we bring our awareness to the tactile sensations once again, just recognizing the position of the body and its current experiences. And then we can start gently introducing some movement, moving back and forth a little bit, reactivating our fingers, our facial muscles, and slowly concluding this practice so that we can enjoy our tiny break. So we have about 15 minutes in case you want to run to the bathroom or just walk around Jamyang to stretch your legs. But also I'll put some journaling questions related to this practice or these practices of tenderness and relaxation. And if you feel like considering them now or later, please feel free to do so. And in about 15 minutes, we'll go into our next session of practice. So enjoy and see you all very soon.